Tiger fans, you're now tuned in to Tiger Rag Television, your source for the latest in LSU sports. In-depth game analysis, engaging interviews, and all things Tiger Nation. It's time to talk some LSU sports. Let's get ready for your Tiger Rag hosts, Jim Inkster, Chelsea Brumfield, Jeff Palermo, and Ron Higgins.
This is Jim Inkster, and welcome to Tiger Rag Television. We're on the brink of history. Monday night, Louisiana Superdome. It's LSU and Clemson, two unbeaten Titans facing for the national championship. The countdown has begun. Ron Higgins, Tiger Rag editor, and Jeff Palermo, news and sports director for the Louisiana Radio Network, will talk about it. And we'll hear in our Crossfire segment, Collis Temple, the great LSU basketball player, with some thoughts about football then and now. And Ron Richard, the general who headed the Tiger Athletic Foundation through two national championships in football, gives his impression about this year. All this coming after this brief pause on Tiger Rag Television.
Tiger Rag Crossfire.
Welcome back to Tiger Rag Television. And in our Crossfire segment this week, we've got the inimitable Collis Temple, the first African-American to play basketball at Louisiana State University. Obviously, he's a versatile guy. We got him off the golf course today.
You sure pulled me off that great City Park golf course, man. You know, that deal was founded in 1928. I love that course.
It is a great course. Even though some people want to get rid of it, I'm glad it's still there.
Well, I think we're going to keep that place, man.
And you live down the street.
Right down the street, right after Dalrymple. I've been going to this course for 40 years, man. It's a good course. It's real tight. You got to be able to hit it straight. So that means I lose a lot of balls, but I keep trying.
Well, Collis, a lot of folks now are talking about football. Might play a little golf every now and then, but the topic of conversation that predominates is about football. Have you ever seen anything like what's going on now a few days from the championship game?
Well, clearly, I went to LSU in 1970. And I kept up with it before I got there. I watched Pat Screen play and I watched Nelson Stokely play. And so I guess I've been following LSU football for about 57 or 58 years. And this is a grand event that's about to take place on the 13th. Never before have we had, obviously, a Heisman, a national championship, a true national championship, whereby there's an undefeated team playing the top teams and beating the heck out of them. So it's a real special time, I think, in the laurels of Louisiana State University football.
Yeah, the last time there was an undefeated LSU champion was 1958. And that's 61 years ago. And LSU is 15-0 if they win this. Nick Saban's never been 15-0. Your good friend. He gave LSU its first championship in 2003 since 1958. I'm sure Coach Saban will be watching this game with interest.
Nobody will ever question whether or not Nick is like the super coach. I mean, clearly he has made his mark everywhere he's gone. He's had tremendous success. He's a phenomenal coach. But this feat that Coach Orgeron is about to pull off, we hope will be special and will never be forgotten.
Well, it's a magical season, but you know as well as I do that if LSU were to lose, it would be disastrous.
Well, it would be tough, but still, he's done a tremendous job. Coach O has, and the players have been, really, really outstanding. And I think that if by happenstance they don't win, we still will can go down in history as being the SEC champion, undefeated, and so forth and so on. But we need to get this thing done against these guys out of South Carolina.
Don't want to repeat of 2012, January 9th, 21-0.
Don't want to do that.
I think LSU will get more than 5 first downs this time.
Well, when you have that spread offense going like we do, and Joe Burrow being able to complete the passes, and the guys Jefferson and other crew catching like they catch, I think it's a special team.
Collis Temple was recruited for the NFL, if you will, and actually drafted. Dallas Cowboys scout Gil Brandt had his eye on you. You were timed in the 40, and you were drafted. And Did you give any serious thought about playing professional football?
I thought a little bit about it, but Detroit was a real cold place. So Detroit Lions, they talked about, me coming up playing tight end or defensive end, sort of patterning things after Too Tall Jones in Dallas, but that really wasn't for me. That cold weather and the grind of football. So I decided I wanted to stick with this basketball piece.
But at LSU, when you arrived in 1970, there were no African Americans on the football team. We talked about this last time. You're the first African American in basketball, and the campus probably had fewer than 100 black students. And Charlie McClendon was concerned about you, wasn't he?
He was a nice fella. Coach Mack, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He had a little interest in me playing playing football to be candid, but Coach Maravich wasn't going to have any part of that. And as the discussion flowed along, it was about, me playing basketball and staying healthy and staying in school.
I think we can talk about it. A lot of years have passed, but he was concerned that interracial couples might not be received well in those days.
It was a different time, clearly a different time, and Coach McClendon had some concern about that situation because it was just an imagination. It was a figment of an imagination. I was walking young lady to class with a couple other guys. In fact, one of her boyfriends, we were all friends leaving Broussard Hall, and he had, I guess he'd been given some information that was taking place, and so he questioned me a little bit about it, but it all worked out, and things moved like they should have moved, which means I graduated and had a fairly decent athletic career.
So it was a figment, not a pigment of the imagination?
We're gonna let the sleeping dog lie.
Okay, well,
okay.
LSU's right now, you would think there was all kinds of upheaval. The chancellor and president's gone, the head of the foundation's gone, the head of the alumni association's gone. What's going on in Tigertown now?
Some people would just say the stars are aligning. There appears to be a movement towards bringing folk who have had a lot of input and who were, I guess, born and bred in Tigertown. I mean, Scott Woodard, who's clearly doing a tremendous job. A lot of people are really feeling his presence, and it appears that there's a lot of welcoming continuing to go on. He's sort of in I guess a honeymoon period, and it's an amazing honeymoon because when the Tigers win in football, everybody is extremely happy. And in the past guy who was athletic director, to be candid, he was responsible for putting all this stuff together. It appears the basketball is doing pretty well, the football is doing super, and so when that goes on, everybody is happy. And but the truth of the matter is, the stage was set before Scott got here. Mm-hmm. But Scott's doing, I think, a great job. And of course, King Alexander, the president, he's moving on. And there appears to be a lot of movement to try to get somebody who's out of the family, a part of the LSU family. And so it's really interesting to see what's going on right now.
Well, with Joe Alleva, who you were alluding to, it truly is out of sight, out of mind. He's the forgotten man, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He came from Duke, and I think I would imagine that Joe is probably in a permanent retirement stage. I don't imagine he's going to look for any more fire to jump into.
Well, I think he's still on the payroll at LSU as a fundraiser, but I haven't seen him around campus too much.
A fund, F-U-N-D, or a fun, F-U-N raiser. I mean, this can go either way.
Yeah. Well, there are some board openings coming open for the LSU board, and Collis Temple's name has been mentioned more than a few times over the years as a possible LSU board member. Would you be interested in that?
I would be. I'd be thrilled just to be given some consideration for that. I think it would be a monumental opportunity for me. LSU has done some tremendous things in my life for me on a personal basis. And of course, you know, I made a commitment a long time ago to be an LSU alum guy who's gonna, you know, be concerned about putting back and making sure that things work in the best interest of Louisiana State University to make it number one in every aspect. And so, yes, I'd be interested in being a part of that family of board members.
Collis is a member of the LSU Hall of Distinction. He also is a member of the Athletic Hall of Fame, having your degree. And you've been around LSU now for almost 50 years. Next year it'll be 50 years since you came to Tigertown. And the person who recruited you not only was Press Maravich, but Governor John Julian McKeithen.
John McKeithen, Big John. Won't you help me, please? Good man, special human being. I had the honor to go and speak at his funeral up in Columbia. And he was really a nice man. I mean, when you talk about a true LSU Tiger and a support guy for Louisiana State University, he was one of the great ones.
And lastly, the governor today, John Bel Edwards, he's from a meet not far from your homestead in Kentwood, and he's probably more active in LSU athletics than any governor since McKeithen.
He's very active. Governor Edwards and I attended a practice before LSU went to the national championship. I mean the SEC championship game. We went over to a practice, and I observed him give a pep talk to the team, and he sounded like he still got something in him. I don't know if he could throw the ball. He was a pretty good quarterback at Amite High, but for sure he's a pretty good pep talk guy. So he said all the right things and wished him luck, and went on over to Atlanta and pulled it off.
Your prediction? Monday night, the Superdome?
Three touchdowns.
3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns.
Okay.
In favor of Louisiana State University.
Not 3 touchdowns in favor of the opposition,
3
the way it
touchdowns
was
in favor
in
of the Tigers.
2012.
3 touchdowns in favor of the Tigers.
I got you. We're counting on you to be accurate.
All right.
Thank you, Collis. And
thank you.
We'll be back with more Tiger Rag Television after this timeout.
Well, Jim, I don't discuss those things with people that have not been there.
Welcome back to Tiger Rag Television. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of the Louisiana Radio Network.
Tiger Rag Six Pack.
Tiger Rag editor Ron Higgins. It's now time for the Tiger Rag Six Pack. 6 questions that I pose to Tiger Rag editor Ron Higgins every week. Question number 1, who is a bigger threat for LSU in the national championship game? The Clemson Tigers dynamic running back Travis Etienne from Jennings, or is it the quarterback Trevor Lawrence?
Well, I think it's Trevor Lawrence. He makes everything work. I mean, it just the ball in his hands. He's a really good he's proven to be a really good runner. It's like having an extra running back there. Travis Etienne is a fine football player, no doubt about it. But Ohio State bottled him up pretty well, and Lawrence kind of took that game over. So Lawrence, and the problem is, you know, you don't want to flush him because he's a good runner. You leave him in the pocket; he's a good pocket passer. It's kind of like Joe Burrow in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's a great quarterback matchup, obviously, and the fact that Trevor Lawrence ran the ball so well against Ohio State, that has to give LSU a lot of concern going into this game, right, Ron?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you see a guy can take off like that, and you know, he's one of those guys when he takes off, he doesn't look like he's that fast when he's running, but he's gobbling up yards with long legs and kind of glides through a defense, kind of like Jalen Hurts used to be when he was at Alabama. I mean, when you saw him at Alabama, Hurts would just kind of glide through the secondary, and before you know it, he was in the end zone.
Well, since we're on the topic of quarterbacks, question number 2 for the Tiger Rag Six-Pack. Joe Burrow, likely to go number 1 to the Cincinnati Bengals in the NFL Draft. Do you think he'll make a good pro quarterback, Ron?
Well, it all depends, I guess, what team you get with. It kind of helps, and what system you're in. I think he has the intangibles. I think the fact that he reads defenses really well, and he puts the ball where it's supposed to be, and he doesn't make very many mistakes reading defenses. He's a smart guy. I think he's the kind of guy you want to run a pro football team. Does he have the strongest arm? Probably not, but you know what? There's a lot of guys in this game who have been great quarterbacks who didn't have the strongest arms. They just knew how to read defenses and put the ball where it's supposed to be. So yeah, I think he'll be a really good pro quarterback.
My favorite quality about Joe Burrow, I think, is his leadership skills. Maybe not the most vocal guy out there, but we've seen it with this 2019, now 20 team, in that everybody falls in line with what he's thinking and his attitude towards a particular game. I think that's a reason why LSU hasn't had that week off, if you would, because Joe Burrow is ready to play every Saturday, and I think that'll carry over into the NFL.
Yeah, it's the way he prepares. He prepares like a pro quarterback, and he leaves nothing to chance. And the other players on this LSU team have seen it, and so they take it that way too. They prepare because they know their quarterback's not going to let them down, and they need to prepare just as hard, and they do that. And they have taken it week to week. That's been the secret to this team. They've never looked ahead. I can only think of one game this year where they really came out and didn't play well early in the game, and that was at Mississippi State. But they corrected that and won that game. And of course, Joe Burrow had a great second half, even though he almost lost his pants.
All right, question number 3 for the Tiger Rag six-pack. Since you brought up Mississippi State, should those players who signed a national letter of intent with the Bulldogs back in December, should they be let out of that NLI because there's now a coaching change in Starkville?
Absolutely. It's like a bait and switch. I mean, you sign with a guy. A lot of players sign with the program because they like the coach, particularly in basketball more than football. But still, football has become more and more that way. A lot of players, who sign with LSU, they have a relationship with the coaches, and especially with the coach Ed Orgeron. A lot of those guys sign with the State because they liked Joe Moorhead. They liked the guy, and all of a sudden he's gone. Yeah, they should do that honor, and if those guys want to leave, let them leave. I mean, let them out their letter of intent. Next coach kind of start all over and get who they want to get. But State knew there would be collateral damage doing this late in the game, so they have to pay for it.
All right, back to the national championship game as we continue with our Tiger Rag six-pack. The over-under in this game, Ron, is 69.5 points. We've sure have seen a lot of points in these national championship games. You think we get over the over in this contest?
69.5? I'd say it's about right. I mean, if you're looking at 45-24 or 45-30, yeah, I'd say that's about right. I think both these teams have good defenses, but they have better offenses, and I think there'll be some points put up in this game. There'll be a lot of points. I'll be surprised if there's not a lot of points. Will these teams get to the 40s? I don't know, but again, sometimes these games, teams sometimes have a tendency not to go conservative, but kind of slow the pace down, as LSU did in the second half against Oklahoma last week in the semifinal game. Of course, you can do that when you almost put 50 up in the first half.
Question number 5 for you, Ron, in the Tiger Rag six-pack. On LSU's defense, who is the key there for the Tigers? Who really needs to have a big game on Monday night?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. The way it's going lately, I think the whole thing runs off the Caleb Chase on. When he starts pressuring quarterbacks and breaking down defenses, everything seems to break down, and he didn't have time to throw. I mean, you can't give quarterbacks time to throw, especially this guy Clemson, who's just tremendous. I mean, Lawrence can hum it. In fact, Grant Delpit was talking about that this week, about how well he throws the ball, what a tight spiral he has on it. And I just think you can't make him comfortable back there. And I think, honestly, that's the key on both sides. Who can protect their quarterback the best will probably win this game.
All right, question number 6 with the Tiger Rag six-pack. So we're talking with Tiger Rag editor Ron Higgins. If something happens early on in this game, Ron, that shows, LSU might be in trouble, what might that be? What may occur in this early part of the game or even on the flip side of this? I mean, if LSU's doing something well early on, do you sit there and say, this is pretty good for LSU?
I think if LSU is getting to the quarterback, if they're getting to Clemson's quarterback, if they're making him move, or if they're making him uncomfortable, if they're shutting I think defense sets the tempo for this game for LSU. I don't think any defense I've seen can stop LSU the entire game. Auburn did a pretty good job of it. LSU figured it out. But as an Oklahoma game in the Peach Bowl in the semifinal, defense set the tempo for LSU, and it just kind of rolled from there. I think the same thing in this game. Defense has to set the tempo for LSU to win the national championship.
Yeah, and I think probably the same for Clemson. They got to do something defensively, a turnover early, making that, producing that into, and making that result in a touchdown, or a couple of 3-and-outs early in the game, frustrating Joe Burrow if that's possible on the college level. Those are some of the things for Clemson if they want to have a chance to win in this game.
Yeah, I talked to Thad Moss earlier the week. We talked about how quickly they figure things out with opposing defenses. He goes, sometimes it just takes a couple of series, usually one series, and if we don't, get a touchdown that first series, we come back and when we talk to the coaches upstairs and things are figured out, they figure out things pretty fast, and that's the beauty of these LSU coaches, of Steve Ensminger and Joe Brady, and a third coach named Joe Burrow. Basically, he is a third coach.
All right, that does it for the Tiger Rag six-pack. We'll have more of Tiger Rag Television after this.
I'm Jim Inkster. We're glad you're watching Tiger Rag Television, and in studio visiting with us in the interview segment this week, a few days before the big game with Clemson, is Ron Richard, General Ron Richard, one of the most decorated Americans of his generation. And for 13 years, he was head of the Tiger Athletic Foundation, following a 33-year career in the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you for your service, General Richard.
Thank you, Jim. You're more than kind. My decorations don't nearly compare to the most decorated servicemen in our country, though.
But General Richard fought in the Persian Gulf War, in Vietnam, and he was part of the team that was at the highest levels in Bosnia, and the U.S. won that skirmish without a casualty. So a great career in the military. You could have done a lot of things when you retired after 33 years. You're 55 years old, but you came back home, and we're going to talk about why you did that. But when you arrived at LSU in 1964, General, 18-year-old kid from Basile, population 2,000, the only town in Louisiana that's in 2 parishes. General Richard had to shave his head like all other LSU freshman males in those days. And did you have any idea it would turn out the way it did?
No, I didn't. I was excited to be at LSU. I thought I was going to be an all-star football player, but I wasn't good enough to make the team. And therefore, I ended up doing other things with my time, with my free time.
Where did you live?
I lived in the West Stadium with 5 other men, and they all flunked out of school. And I came very close to flunking out of school my first semester, but I managed to hang in there and graduate.
Were you in a fraternity?
I joined a fraternity, yes.
And it turned out well for you. And you graduate in 1968. This is at the height of the Vietnam War. A lot of men of your generation, they suddenly came down with bone spurs or looked to go to grad school, but you volunteered. Why did you do it?
I've been asked that question many times. And my answer has always been the same from the time I was asked that question in 1968. It was the right thing to do for my country. My heritage and my upbringing was such that I felt an obligation to do that. And I'm happy I did. And I still feel the same way today.
Well, and your service is admirable, and the country has benefited from that service. There is no doubt. You were all over the world, and during that time you remained an LSU fan of the First Order. And I understand you were in a war zone when your first child was born.
I was in Vietnam, and our company first sergeant brought the news to me, and we toasted the birth of my first child, a daughter, with a small bottle of bourbon that he received on an airline flight when he came back from R&R. So we toasted that, myself, the company commander, the first sergeant, and my radio operator from the Bronx, New York.
I'll be darned. And along the way, when you're in these hot spots across the globe, you listen to LSU games. How did you do that?
I bought transistor radios, and I had antennas on the fantail of amphibious ships throughout the world. I would be approached by several people aboard the ship saying, "What are you doing?" And I'm saying, "I'm listening to the Fighting Tigers play football."
Well, you served under 8 presidents, 5 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and when you're serving for your commander-in-chief, whoever he is, you got to go where you got to go, right? But did you ever have any doubt about the direction of the country or what you were doing?
Yes,
And what did you do?
I executed my orders, and I went.
And it's not easy to do that, and you were in combat. You know, a lot of soldiers, most soldiers are never in combat, but you saw carnage like few people have.
You know, it's a strange feeling whenever you're told to do something that you don't quite understand exactly why you're doing it. But the difference is discipline, and the idea that whenever you have to do something that your body tells you not to do, and you do it anyway, that's not courage. It's not hero stuff. It's just discipline. And the Marine Corps instilled that in me, and I executed my orders on every occasion.
Do you ever get perturbed when people compare a football game to battle and war? You were on a battlefield with people dying in close combat. Football's not like that.
It doesn't perturb me. I understand the comparison. And I don't wake up every morning waiting to be offended, like many people in the United States. It seems to be kind of in vogue nowadays to be offended. I'm very seldom offended, and it doesn't bother me at all.
Well, you came back 33 years, and you could have written your own ticket with being a 2-star general. It doesn't get any higher than that unless there's some presidential activity. You chose to come back as head of TAF. Why did you do it?
Well, I was retiring from the Marine Corps. It was before 9/11. I had been in several commands. I was nearing my end of my 33 years of service, and I needed a job. I sought out the position at Tiger Athletic Foundation. They interviewed me, and I was hired. I thought I would be wearing polo shirts and playing golf. I didn't realize we had to do all of these building projects. But I enjoyed my time at Tiger Athletic Foundation, and I enjoyed my time at LSU. It was one of the most enjoyable periods of my life.
Well, the general arrived in 2001. Nick Saban was entering his 2nd season. LSU wins its first SEC title in 13 years, and then 2 years later wins its first national title in 45 years. You were there. Saban was a game changer, wasn't he?
Nick was an absolute game changer, along with Mark Emmert, along with Skip Bertman. It was an unusual group of egos that all came together, and I found it very enjoyable to be involved with all of those gentlemen.
Well, Bertman won 5 national championships, and Saban has won 6, so it doesn't get much better than that. And Emmert's now head of the NCAA, and his protege, Scott Woodward, is the athletic director at LSU right now. Now, during that 13-year period, all these facilities that have sprung up, including all of the suites, that all happened on your watch.
It did. The suites on the east side was completed on my watch, and the rest of the football stadium all happened while I was there, along with the baseball stadium, the softball stadium, and the renovation of the PMAC, the first renovation. So a lot of things took place, and it was interesting to see the fan reaction to ticket surcharges, traditions funds, priority points, all the things that now seem to be commonplace at LSU.
Well, that enabled you to raise about $500 million. That's what it costs to do all these facilities, including the Football Operations Center. That was your baby. I'm sure you're proud to see that come to fruition.
That was the first Football Operations Center. Now there's a new one, and it's even bigger and better and very impressive.
The cafeteria?
I was there once and had the opportunity to eat there. Very impressive.
Is it now paramount for schools like LSU to keep up with the Joneses when it comes to facilities?
I think it is, but I must say, privately, I think it's almost out of control now. Not at LSU per se, but just the culture of the salaries, the cost of collegiate athletics. It's developed into a haves and have-nots. You hear talk about the Power Five having their own series or their own conference. So it's very difficult to understand how and why this thing keeps escalating. But it has, and it probably will.
Yeah, is there any putting the genie back in the bottle?
I don't think so. I don't think so until somebody literally runs out of money.
Well, in 1964, when you arrived, LSU was a power then, but it was a much different environment than it is now.
It was. I remember going to my first football game as a young boy with my grandfather. We had seats in the south end zone, second from the top in the south end zone. And then I went to my first football game as a student, and I found that very interesting. Much more enjoyable than sitting in the south end zone.
I hear there was alcohol in the stands.
There was just a few. There were a few, not many, but a few on occasion.
You and I both lived in the stadium, and that was quite an experience. I made my radio debut in the stadium. I lived in the stadium, and of course,
Where did you live, Joe?
I lived on the east side.
Oh, you were in the high rent district. Yes.
But you were on the west side.
I was in the low rent district with 3 racks.
General Ron Richard now lives on LSU Avenue, a stone's throw from the LSU campus and the stadium where he resided as a student. And we'll find out more about then and now with the big game against Clemson in the offing just a few days away. More Tiger Rag Television after this quick timeout.
Go Tigers.
I'm Jim Inkster, and we're glad you're watching Tiger Rag Television, and we're continuing our discussion with two-star general, Major General Ron Richard, the pride of Basile, graduate of LSU, 33 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, and 13 years as head of the Tiger Athletic Foundation. And in those 13 years, 2 national championships in football, 2003 Nick Saban, 2007 Les Miles. What do you think? Is it inevitable LSU is going to win this coming Monday night?
I believe that they are going to win, and if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't tell you so. No, I think they will. I think our offense is such that that we will outscore Clemson.
Well, Burrow seems to be unstoppable, and he's had this magical year, first Heisman winner since Billy Cannon. You probably remember Cannon. You were a lad of 13 when he won the Heisman in 1959. Did that influence you as a young man as far as wanting to come to LSU?
No, it didn't. I was one of the few people who were not in the stadium that witnessed Billy Cannon's run. But in my later years at Tiger Athletic Foundation, and since I retired from TAF, I got to know Billy. We would share a suite together on occasion during the football games. And I got to meet his great family, and especially his wife. And then, of course, his daughter
Bunny.
worked for Tiger Athletic Foundation.
Did a great job. You now have a grandson who is a captain in the Marines.
He's a captain select, and he's aboard an amphibious ship right now that is part of our reserve for our Department of Defense, especially in light of the current events throughout the world.
Earlier when we were talking about your military experience and some of the hot spots and war zones you've been in, how did that affect you, seeing some really bad things along the way? You can't be human without it having some impact on you.
Well, Jim, I don't discuss those things with people that have not been there.
I haven't been there.
Then we won't discuss it.
Do you think it has any impact on the way you look at life today?
Sure. Every experience you have that's a traumatic experience affects your life. But people that discuss their experiences in combat zones and close combat, for the most part, tend to exaggerate, or they tend not to speak about it at all. And I found that it was best to let that experience weigh on me as an individual, and it is the compass by which I live my life.
Well, that's apparent, and it's been an exemplary life, and you've remained an LSU fan through and through, and it's apparent that you bleed purple and gold. But after going through that, is life a letdown?
No, I have a boat, and I'm the captain of my ship. I'm senior to every person on that boat, and I feel like I'm a general again when I'm on the boat. When I'm not on the boat, I'm a private. Seriously, no, life is not a letdown. I am thankful and grateful, and whenever I speak to my God, I thank Him for giving me a great family and giving me the opportunity to experience a great adventure called the United States Marine Corps, and also granting me the opportunity to give me a great experience called LSU Athletics.
Monday night, will you be riding your motorcycle to the Superdome?
No, I'll be taking my boat to Pontchartrain Landing, and my wife and I are leaving Sunday morning, and we're going to dock the boat and take a shuttle to festivities Sunday evening, and then take a shuttle to the game Monday, and hopefully get a shuttle to go back to the boat.
Well, earlier, Collis Temple, your friend, said that LSU was going to win by 3 touchdowns. Your thoughts?
Did he?
Yeah.
I'm all for Collis. Go Collis. If he thinks that, he certainly has a better feel for that than I do.
You think it's going to be a close game?
I think it's going to be closer than that, but I think LSU will win. I just don't know to what extent Clemson can generate points. I'm not that familiar with them.
Well, General, thank you again for your service and for being an ambassador for LSU. Nobody's done it better than this man. $500 million in facilities were put up and are now on display for the world to see as LSU stands proud, and the Tigers and Clemson face off Monday night. The General will be there, as he should be. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll return with more Tiger Rag Television after this timeout.
Go Tigers.
Thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week with more Tiger Rag Television. We'll know whether LSU has won its 4th National Football Championship in modern time. Ron Higgins and Jeff Palermo will be here, and I'm Jim Inkster. We are the Bible of LSU sports. And whatever happens in LSU sports, we're here to talk about it next week, back same time, same place.